Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. No, happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Silvia Leja. I am one of the digital organizers with the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, or WAISN. I will be facilitating our conversation today. How's everyone doing? Um, Tonight, we're going to be joined by Central Washington Legal Aid for an important conversation about the closure of Alexandra Lozano's immigration law and what this means for immigrant families across Washington and beyond. So, over the past several weeks, the WAISN Deportation Defense Hotline has heard from many community members who suddenly found themselves without answers about immigration cases. And many of these people don't know whether they still have an attorney, whether deadlines have been missed, or how to access their own case files. So, tonight's conversation is meant to help answer some of these questions and explain what steps people can take next. But before we begin, we want to remind everyone that today's conversation is providing general information only. We are not providing any legal advice. And because Facebook is a public space, please do not post your A number, your case number, your address, your phone number, or any personal information in the comments. And as a final reminder as well, we will be doing the first 30 minutes of this live in English, and then starting at 6:30 or about there, we will transition into Spanish so everybody gets the information that they need tonight. My lovely coworker Irene, who is behind the scenes right now, will also be sharing resources and answering logistical questions in the chat throughout today's live stream. If we have any technical difficulties, we will also deal with that within the chat as well. But before we dive in, I do want to share a little bit about why this conversation is so important to me personally. Like I said, my name is Silvia. I've been working with WAISN for about 2 years. I was born in Nayarit, Mexico, but I was raised in Yakima after my family immigrated to the United States when I was about 4 years old. Some of my earliest memories are of watching neighbors and family members help each other navigate systems that often felt confusing and inaccessible. People translated documents, for each other. They shared rides to appointments and to work. And they also made sure no one had to face a lot of these difficulties alone. As I got older, I realized those acts of care were what it meant to survive in a city like Yakima, in a country like the United States. Today, I work with WAISN because I truly wholeheartedly believe every immigrant family deserves access to trusted information and also to support, especially during moments of uncertainty like these. That's why we're here tonight, to make sure people affected by the closure of Alexandra Lozano immigration law know they have options and that they don't have to navigate this alone. But before we do that specifically, I also want to share a little bit what we're hearing through our deportation defense hotline. Our hotline exists to document immigration enforcement activity, but even more importantly, it connects community members with support. Over the past few months, we've seen a significant increase in immigrant enforcement across Washington. Between April and June, the number of confirmed detentions reported through our hotline and rapid response teams increased by about 140% compared to the beginning of the year. In June alone, we confirmed the detention of 58 people, including 21 people detained during a large immigration raid in Mason County. Many of the detentions we're documenting are happening during traffic stops or in public places like parking lots, and our local rapid response teams are activating almost every day to verify these reports, to support impacted families, and make sure communities have accurate information. But at the same time, we've also been hearing from many former clients of Alexandra Lozano who are facing their own kind of uncertainty. That's why conversations like today are so important. In moments like these, access to trusted legal information can make all the difference. And I am so grateful to have Central Washington Legal Aid here to help answer some of the most common questions we are hearing from the community. So, to help us do that, I'm joined today by Eilish Villamalone, Director of Immigration Legal Services from Central Washington Legal Aid. Hello, Eilish.
Hi, Sylvia. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I sure can. Thanks for having me
Beautiful.
today.
Yes, thank you so much again for joining us. To start, can you introduce yourself and tell us about the work Central Washington Legal Aid does?
Great. Thank you so much. And apologies in advance if my internet is a little bit laggy. Appreciate your patience, and I'll do my best to talk slowly so people can hear me. So my name is Eilish Villa. I am Director of Immigration Legal Services at Central Washington Legal Aid. We have an office in Yakima, and we also have a satellite office with our partner organization, Unidos Nueva Alianza, in Moses Lake. And we've been offering immigration legal services now for 2 years, but we've been operating for more than 20 years, predominantly offering assistance with civil legal aid matters.
Awesome. And I've been lucky enough to work with you the last few weeks, supporting communities here in the area with the Lozano situation here in Central Washington. Can you explain what happened with Alexandra Lozano, Luz Legal, and what this closure has meant for the affected clients?
I can. So the way that I like to explain this is I like to explain it in a timeline because it seems like so much was in the news, so much information has been all over the place. So everything's happened in the past couple of months, starting in May. We heard that there was going to be a civil lawsuit against the law firm Alexandra Lozano Law for what appeared to be some not great legal practice kind of issues with some folks. So a couple of weeks after the lawsuit went through, and that was all over the news, and we saw the attorney's face all over the place in the newspapers and on social media. The attorney, Alexandra Lozano, actually, what she did is she resigned her law license in lieu of discipline. And what that means is that she was going through a disciplinary process with the Washington State Bar Association, which is kind of like the agency that gives all of the lawyers in Washington their license. And instead of receiving any kind of discipline, she just resigned her license. And kind of in the same time, her law firm changed from Alexandra Lozano Immigration Law to Luz Legal. So it had a name change. But then a couple of weeks, I think, into June, the law firm shut down, sent notice to everybody to make their payments, and then the next day said it was closing down and that they would no longer be able to receive mail for people. And that's kind of what we've seen so far with the development of Lozano and her firm and her bar license.
Yeah, there was some very harrowing pictures coming out from the Yakima Herald for her office here, King County as well. What are some of the most common concerns you're hearing from former clients of Alexandra Lozano when they're showing up to the legal clinics or just calling you?
Well, because of the nature of the allegations made against her and some of the allegations in the civil complaint, including allegations of fraud, talking about submitting applications that people hadn't read, other kind of really serious claims there, folks are immediately concerned. First of all, they don't have a lawyer anymore. They don't have representation on their case. And then second of all, they're really worried that there's going to be some kind of negative immigration consequence, either because they hired that firm or because they don't know actually what kind of forms were submitted and what information was submitted. And then we're also hearing from people, of course, the legitimate fear of, will I be deported? And then I'm also getting the question is like, how do I get my money back? those are kind of the biggest things that I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah. Again, a lot of uncertainty. Yeah, I think the money aspect is a huge thing. A lot of people pay thousands and thousands of dollars, but specifically to the legal aspect and the representation. What are the first things that CWLA recommends that someone should do if they were a client of the firm?
So the way that I've come to kind of understand these cases is that you've got like different steps in their journey to figuring out where their migratory status is going to go here in the United States after having interacted with Lozano. And I'd say if you have a case with Lozano, you've submitted some kind of application with the law firm. There are two really important things that you can do right now from your USCIS online account, or there are a ton of organizations having clinics and things to help this too. And the two things are doing a change of address. So letting USCIS know or letting the court know what your address is and changing it from the law firm to your own safe address. It doesn't necessarily have to be your physical address. It can be a mail, like a USPS box, a mailbox, or it can be another safe address that you have. And that can be done with a form that's called AR11. If you do it with paper, you'll Google and find that form. Or the form for the immigration court is called an EOIR 33. But you can also do it on your USCIS online account, which I understand can be difficult to figure out. We don't even remember what our email is. But if you've got someone around you that has access to email that can help you out, I would say it's a lot easier to do it from your online account. And then in addition to the change of address, I'm also recommending that people try and get their entire immigration file from USCIS. This can be done by submitting what's called a FOIA request with USCIS. And it's something that can also be done from your USCIS account, or you can do it with paper forms, but highly recommend to do it from your USCIS account. It's pretty easy once you get in there and you figure out how, like, where the web page is. And of course, like, it can also just be challenging to do that, and that's understandable. So that's where the next piece of advice comes, is like, make sure if you have a case that's pending with Alexandra Lozano, you're going to need a second opinion. You're going to need to talk to an attorney, and an attorney can help you to request your file from immigration. But I, of course, encourage you to try and do it before on your own behalf, just to save you some money.
Yeah, you mentioned all these resources and requesting their FOIA file. Is there a way that people can check the status of their case? Let's say maybe they don't have their A number, or how to find their A number, or also request their file directly from Lozano. Are these options?
Yeah, so the law firm Luz Legal, it has supposedly sent out all of their files to their ex-clients. So ex-clients of that law firm should have gotten like a Google link that includes their files that law firm worked on. The only problem that I've seen is that sometimes the links are like corrupted, like they won't open, or maybe there's not every document in there, or there's just not a comprehensive history of that person in that file. So that's why I'm recommending just go straight to requesting your FOIA, so that when you do talk to a lawyer, you have a complete file with you. And then you can, if like the law firm filed anything for you, you should have gotten receipts from immigration. And it's like a little paper, and at the top, what side? At the top left corner of that page, should be your receipt number for that form. And it will usually start with an LIN or an EAC. And you can kind of grab that, and then you can Google USCIS case status, and you'll find a link on the USCIS website to do that. And you can put your receipt number in there, and it should tell you the status of that case. Now, for immigration court, and I recommend that everybody do this, regardless if you have court or not, is if you've got an A number, what you should do is you should also Google EOIR A number search, and it'll pull up like the first link there, and it has a little golden eagle on it. And you plug in your A number and your country of origin, and it should tell you if you have court or not there. And it should tell you the location of the court and the date of the court if you have one.
Okay, yeah. So totally not very different processes, but definitely significantly different for people with court versus people who were just going through a legal process without the court aspect.
Right.
You also mentioned the needing a new attorney and getting that second opinion. If someone does need a new attorney, do you have recommendations for what options are available or how they can find someone trustworthy? Or if they do find a new attorney, what warning signs should people watch out for? Especially, we live in an area in a state where like notaries are a very big thing.
Yeah, this is a great question. And, I think the whole thing with Lozano has revealed, in part how vulnerable people really are, because we're so desperate to figure out our situation and obtain stability, which is totally understandable. With immigration or with any kind of legal consult, the first thing I'll say is if one attorney tells you no, then maybe go get a second opinion. And if a second attorney tells you no again, then that probably means no. What's happening across the country, not just with this law firm, but with other law firms, is that they will say, oh, did 5 other attorneys say you couldn't fix your papers? Well, I might have a different opinion. And that would be the first red flag for me. Because if 5 people told you no, then the answer is probably no. And I'm so sorry about that, but that's just a reality. So first red flag is somebody who says that kind of thing. I'd also say anyone who pressures you to turn in a type of application that you don't quite agree with. For example, we see nowadays a lot of VAWA fraud. So VAWA is a kind of relief for somebody who was a victim of some sort of mistreatment by a U.S. citizen spouse or child over 21. And let's say you're married to a U.S. citizen and you're undocumented and your U.S. citizen spouse and you fight. That's not enough for VAWA. There has to be some kind of marked abuse or something more severe. And sometimes even attorneys, sometimes notaries will pressure people. Well, did you fight? Did he insult you? Did he do this? Did he do that? To try and frame it as abuse. And I don't want to minimize when it's truly abuse, it's truly abuse. But we also don't want to keep doing this cycle where we're framing regular crappy marriages as abuse.
Yes.
And I would just say, like, a good attorney is going to explain everything to you. They're going to be transparent. They're going to let you know what the risks are. They're going to let you know what the strategy is. And they're going to review every single page of an application that's being submitted on your behalf. That's what we do at my office. We read back every single page so that you know all of the information that's being submitted for you.
Yeah. Speaking of your office, what resources does Central Washington Legal Aid have or recommend for people in Washington who have been affected by the firm's closure?
We have an information packet that we've developed. It can be shared here, I think. It's also on our social media. And it's got kind of like the steps that I've described, going through getting a change of address. It's got information on how to make a USCIS account and how to request your FOIA. It's got a huge list of attorneys who have been vetted by me and who are taking on Lozano cases.
Mm-hmm.
So highly recommend that people look at that. It also has like the link for how to make a complaint to the Attorney General's office, how to send the intake for the Lozano civil lawsuit. And it also has the link for Washington State Bar Association website that pertains to this and how maybe one can get their money compensated in that way. So highly recommend that people look at that for information.
Awesome. Yeah, and we will have that on our public resources page in our resource finder. You can also get that now, like you said, on the CWLA Central Washington Legal Aid social media, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. And then is there anything else you want impacted families to know before we take some questions from the audience here?
I'd really like people to know, like, I think when all of this happened, there's just so much panic. We're in a time where we're already very stressed, we're already very scared, feeling like leaving the home is scary, going to work is scary. And then on top of it, to have now this kind of double layer of Lozano, like not knowing what happens with your case. And I just want people to know, like, not all of the Lozano cases are lost causes. Not everybody's going to get deported, but it's very important that you get support behind you. You get an attorney looking at your case so that you can have a game plan for what's next. Because some people might be totally fine. They'll get their green card in the mail, it'll be fine. And then other people might get denied or have some other consequences. So highly recommend that you consult with a lawyer. Not all the cases are a lost cause. Not everybody's going to get deported, but be proactive and get in touch with someone as soon as you can.
Great. And we have two questions here. First one, you mentioned two forms earlier in terms of the next steps that people need to do. Can you repeat the name of the forms that
Yes.
we need? Yes.
Yes. The change of address, if you have a case with USCIS, is called the AR11. You can Google USCIS AR11 and you should be able to find it. And then if you have a case with the immigration court, now this is only if you have an immigration court case and you need to update your address, the form to do that is called EOIR 33. And you can just Google either one of those and they should pop up pretty easily.
And then our final question here, information, TikTok kind of exploded with a lot of this information first, and social media really takes a lot of this news. It sounds like some people were hearing that maybe she was still practicing. Obviously, she like stopped practicing and then lose legal. Do you know if she's still practicing or if people are still being reached out by her?
So I have heard some different things, like people are still getting texts from their like automated payment system, like being requested to make payments, or people are still getting kind of like automatic messages. She should not be practicing. And in fact, I mean, from what I hear and know, which is not everything, I'm not all being and all seeing, we don't know where she is. But her law firm, it's shut down for business, but it's still running in the background. out visas, from what I understand. So that may explain why people may be receiving messages.
Eilish, just real quick, you are having some audio issues. Okay. All right. We're gonna let Eilish go for a moment here, so that we can figure out these audio issues. Otherwise, that is all the time we have in terms of questions. If you do have other questions, we please drop them in the chat. Again, we will have the Spanish section here in a little bit. Thank you so much, Eilish, again, for sharing your expertise and for everything Central Washington Legal Aid is doing to support our communities. You can find Central Washington Legal Aid across social media, and then we will drop the link to their website on our comments as well. And thank you everyone so far who has joined us tonight. Again, we will do our Spanish section here in 30 minutes. But if there's one thing we hope you take away from today's conversation is that if you've been affected by the closure of Alexandra Lozano immigration law, you're not alone. And there are trusted organizations who are ready to help, just like CWLA. If you need to report immigration enforcement activity, please text or call the WAISN Deportation Defense Hotline at 844-724-3737. We're open from Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we also triage a lot of text messages while they're closed. So if you text, you will get a reply back. You can also visit WAISN's website for Know Your Rights materials, our public resources page, and our resource finder to connect with trusted resources across Washington state, like these legal clinics that CWLA is hosting to support people who have been affected by Lozano. Para quienes nos acompañan en español, en unos momentos comenzaremos la transmisión de Facebook Live completamente en español. So we will begin the Spanish Facebook Live here in about 3 to 4 minutes. If you have friends or family members or loved ones who would benefit from this information, right now is a great time to share this live stream with them so that they can join us and ask their questions. Gracias de nuevo por estar aquí y volveremos en un momento para comenzar en español.